A faint metallic sound echoed as the cleaning cart brushed against the edge of the stage. Beneath the warm amber light, the black grand piano rested still, like a sleeping beast. Daniel Reyes, 37, in a faded green uniform, rubber gloves tucked into his pocket, was bent over, polishing the last armrest in the VIP row. The sound technician had just tested the speakers, the bass humming softly through the air. Tonight was the annual fundraising gala of the Riverview Arts Foundation at Riverview Concert Hall in Chicago. Tuxedos, ball gowns, sparkling champagne flutes, and expensive stories. From the floor looking up, Daniel paused in front of the Steinway. The glossy lid reflected him twice, one a weary janitor with salt-stained sweat, the other someone he used to be. "Are you done yet?" came a firm, low voice. Eleanor Hart, 52, CEO of Hart and Lowell Capital and chairwoman of the foundation, walked across the wooden floor as if entering a boardroom. A platinum watch glimmered on her wrist. Daniel nodded. "Yes, ma'am." The first patrons had started arriving, laughter and clinking glasses rippling like gentle waves. Eleanor turned toward the crowd, a mischievous spark in her eyes. "Who knows? Maybe the biggest surprise tonight will come from our backstage crew?" Her gaze lingered on Daniel, longer than necessary, a half smile. A few phones lifted, waiting for harmless fun. No one knew that inside Daniel, an old door had just cracked open. Daniel had moved to Chicago 2 years ago, after an accident took his wife, Marisol, on I-90 during a late winter night. He became a single father to 6-year-old Lily, a little girl who loved sticking glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling and asking for Daddy's song every night before bed. His janitorial job at Riverview Concert Hall paid just enough. Still, it offered flexible shifts, allowing him to pick her up from after-school care, cook dinner, check her math homework, and read bedtime stories before lights out. Few knew that before holding a mop, Daniel had held piano keys. He grew up in a noisy San Antonio neighborhood, where an old upright piano from the church sat proudly in the living room. During college, he studied performance, practiced until his fingertips hardened, and survived on weekend gigs. Then life shifted. Marisol became pregnant, tuition piled up, and the dream of the stage was packed away into an invisible wooden box somewhere in his chest. Daniel always carried 2 things: the soft cloth he used for dusting, and a photo of Lily tucked behind his phone case. Before leaving the hall each night, he had a habit of sitting in the last row, listening to the silence of the room. A silence unlike any other, like a lake just stilled after a ripple. Sometimes, when no one was there, he'd touch a key or two, just enough to remember he could still hear. He walked with a slight forward lean, as if afraid to wake someone sleeping. His sleeves were rolled neatly 3 times, revealing sun-darkened wrists and a thin scar from an old piano string replacement. His sneakers were worn at the toes, but always spotless. About an hour before showtime, organizers allowed donors to tour the backstage area. The scent of expensive perfume mixed with the old wood of the floor. Eleanor led the group, her voice carrying easily without a mic. Suddenly, she stopped before the Steinway and turned to Daniel. "Mr. Reyes, I've heard your team might have some hidden talents. Ever play yourself?" A ripple of polite laughter followed. A silver-haired man quipped, $2 million worth of piano. What better way to test one's luck?" Daniel felt heat rising in his face. "I know a little, but tonight I'm just working," he said softly. "Come now." Eleanor waved toward the seats like a seasoned MC. "We could all use a little pre-show entertainment." Phones began pointing toward the stage. Daniel stood in the center of nameless lenses, eyes eager to witness something amusing, shareable. He heard whispers. Maybe he'll play Happy Birthday. Just a few notes. For fun. His heart pounded. Memories and the present overlapped. A freezing emergency room, Marisol's hand growing cold, a small living room, Lily's head on his lap. Daddy, play my song. Unpaid bills, the whisper of a broom late at night. All of it pressed into his chest, forming a knot of silence. "It's okay, Daniel," the sound tech murmured, half sympathetic, half curious. "Just a few seconds." But in the crowd, some eyes curved like hooks, waiting for a man to stumble so they could laugh. Daniel looked down at his hands, one nail chipped from replacing trash bags, calluses from years of pressing pedals. He took a deep breath. If I don't define this moment myself, they will. In the middle row, a few interns whispered bets on how many notes the janitor guy would hit. A woman with a red silk scarf chuckled, "At least it'll be fun if the orchestra's late." The words dropped on the wooden floor, bouncing like a pebble on a still pond. Daniel felt the ripples spread through his chest, touching the place he kept hidden. He told himself, "They can define me, or the music will." Daniel set the rag aside, pulled out the piano bench, and adjusted the height with a motion far too fluent for a harmless joke. Another wave of murmurs rippled. He placed his hands on the keys, not pressing yet, allowing his neck and shoulders to loosen. The first notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, Opus No. Number 2 fell softly, like dew. No more laughter, no more whispers, only a delicate, proud melody flowing through the seats, awakening memories long asleep in hearts that thought they'd seen it all. Eleanor froze mid-aisle, one hand resting on the back of a chair. Her lips closed slowly, her gaze shifting from judgment to quiet listening. A young benefactress lowered her phone, afraid the screen's glow might shatter the fragile moment. Daniel didn't look at anyone. He looked into the dark space beyond the stage lights, where a small shadow of Lily seemed to swing her legs, whispering, "Daddy, softer, I'm trying to sleep." At the middle section, he lingered in a rubato, pressing one note like holding a falling hand. The sound drifted from the hall into the lobby, rolled along the walls, and touched portraits of old conductors. When the final note dissolved into air, a deep stillness fell. No one dared break it. Then, from one corner, applause, tentative, then certain. Row by row, hearts agreed without words. Standing, applause rising, a raw "Bravo!" burst out. Eleanor stepped closer to the stage, her heels tapping steadily. She spoke without a mic, her voice softer now. "Where did you learn that, Mr. Reyes?" Daniel swallowed. "I studied performance at a small music school in Texas. Then I stopped." He didn't mention the accident, the sleepless nights with his child. Applause still lingered. Someone dabbed tears with a satin napkin. "Another piece?" Eleanor tilted her head. This time, an invitation. Daniel turned back to the bench. His fingers found air on the G-string by Bach, the lullaby Lily had memorized by breath. He played slowly, giving each phrase a place to rest. The melody became a suspension bridge over a canyon inside people's hearts, inviting them across, hands clutching cables of memory. A man in the front row thought of his son studying abroad. A woman remembered the letter she never sent to her sister. Eleanor suddenly felt the widening gap between herself and her grown, successful children, stretched by years of meetings and flights. At the end, Daniel left a few beats of silence, like a hand resting on the shoulder of strangers who had just cried. When Daniel lifted his hands from the keys, the hall exhaled a breath it had been holding too long. Eleanor stepped fully onto the stage. Her voice had changed, not that of a host, but of someone realizing she'd missed something precious. "Mr. Reyes," she said. "Tonight, you gave us more than pre-show entertainment. You reminded us why art exists." She turned to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, we come here to sustain art, and tonight, art reminded us to sustain humanity." Then she turned back to Daniel. "If you're willing, the Riverview Arts Foundation would like to sponsor a 12-month part-time program for you. Piano coaching, a few community performances, and flexible hours so you can still pick up your daughter. I won't let talent stay hidden behind a cleaning cart just because of a shift schedule." The murmurs this time were tender. The silver-haired man clapped first, then the entire hall. Daniel opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He thought of Lily, of waiting outside her school gate every afternoon. He began, "only have one condition. Whatever we do next, Lily always comes first." "Of course," Eleanor replied almost instantly. "We'll start with her schedule." She offered her hand. Daniel hesitated half a beat, then took it. Another wave of applause, warm and united. 6 months later, posters in Pilsen showed Daniel in a dark suit captioned, "Sunday Afternoon Concert, Piano and Stories of Kindness. Free performances at the local library, Lily's elementary school, and Riverview before main shows." Daniel still worked part-time at the hall, still pushed his cart. But on concert nights, he traded rubber gloves for white ones. Lily sat front row, back straight, eyes wide every time her lullaby returned. As for Eleanor, on her desk sat a framed photo of Daniel at the piano in his green uniform, rows of empty seats and golden light behind him. Before each meeting, she looked at it like a promise. To use power to mend what's unjust, right before her eyes. And sometimes, when we listen long enough, we hear people before we hear the music. Not everyone gets to choose the stage of their life. Many, like Daniel, choose quiet paths to keep another small heart safe. But kindness has its own way of unlocking doors, sometimes through a sincere apology, sometimes through a timely chance, and sometimes through silence long enough for a melody to rise beneath the noise. The story at Riverview Concert Hall reminds us that dignity doesn't live in titles or platinum watches, but in how we treat the hands that cleaned the room before the spotlight began. When a community looks closer, beyond uniforms, beyond assumptions, we don't just find art, we find each other. And sometimes, like that night, a nocturne doesn't just heal one person, it stitches back an invisible distance among many. If this story touched you, leave a comment below. When was the last time you witnessed a hidden talent? Hit like, subscribe to Kindness Stories 365, and share this video with someone who needs a gentle tune tonight. Every comment you leave is a round of applause for ordinary people doing extraordinary things every day. And if you've ever seen a moment of kindness like this, tell us, so we can spread it together.